yeah, we're going to do a little slideshow tonight, but we're also going to get into the ethnobotanical mystery of black ayahuasca or Ayahuasca Trueno, which is pretty interesting. This first image here, that's a blue morpho. It's actually a relatively small one. The only reason I grabbed it is because it was trapped in the kitchen area and I was releasing it. They are oftentimes solid blue instead of just having the stripe like this one. Incredibly beautiful and just totally awesome. So this is basically just the road leading to the site, and these bats, I was in the shower and I looked out and they were chilling there. So I thought that was cool, and I went outside and tried to get some video. They didn't like that very much and they flew away. This thing here, let me pause it a better. I think it's called a SIBO. There's tons of different names for all of these fish, but when I resume the video, you'll see that it has like, they look like shark's teeth, ridges sticking out all along the side, and they are razor sharp. Like, I'm not exaggerating at all, like razor sharp. And I ate this fish, otherwise I wouldn't be fishing, and or we ate this fish rather. And I was really surprised when I opened it up to discover that it was full of palm fruits and grass. It's apparently vegan and was probably just rummaging around for fruit and grass and accidentally slurped up my worm, or maybe they occasionally supplement. But that was interesting. Check this thing out. It is a dinosaur.
You got it? Video?
See those ridges? Razor sharp.
It's too long ways too.
By the way, the editing isn't great because my mouse pad is broken.
What is that?
Okay, so here.
Like ayahuasca?
Alicia and a...
Right, Alicia what? And in fact, my identification of this plant as Alicia anisopetala was quite likely wrong. And for the context that I use this plant, it doesn't really matter because the Malpighiaceae subspecies that are often confused with the Alicia basically serve the same purpose. Black ayahuasca and Ayahuasca Trueno, thunder ayahuasca, are often used for the same plant. Some people, however, insist that Trueno is an entirely different plant. And so there's a lot of confusion around it. It doesn't help that it is nearly impossible to distinguish them in the field without flowers or seed pods, right? So alkaloid assays, analysis of Alicia has uncovered no harmalas and no tryptamines. So we don't even know what is in it. Some people report having, like a friend of mine went to Tarapoto and drank with a shaman there that said he was using black ayahuasca. And when he described the effect of it to me, he said that it had the deepest, richest, most vivid, clear visions of any brew that he had ever consumed, which makes no sense because black ayahuasca generally is considered very purgative, not very visual, and it doesn't have harmalas even to activate the chacruna. So did this shaman actually mean that he was using a very dark subspecies of Banisteriopsis? So again, for my purposes, only using like less than 5% in a brew, and only when someone shows resistance to the medicine, it seems to unblock something and gives people access to visions, or just generally increases receptivity to the medicine in general. The darker Malpighiaceae species can be used interchangeably with Alicia for that purpose. However, you should not drink black unless you know the lineage of the vine. But in terms of just making a brew with just black ayahuasca, I will do that on occasion, but only because I get that vine from Ashaninka Shamana, and she knows the lineage, right? So we know exactly how what the effect is. What was happening is that these road crews were coming through and they were chopping back the jungle as it starts to encroach on the road. And so I was walking down the road and I saw that pattern on the left side, and it turned out that they had cut it on the right side, and for no reason at all, they threw it across the road. Otherwise I wouldn't have seen it, which I felt, that was interesting and serendipitous. But when I went back to examine, I noticed that the vine looked different. And I realized it was a different vine So I walked a little bit further down and I found a third one. And they all had distinctly different patterns, similar but variated, variations in the leaves. So they were all either dark cappy, maybe alicia species, but all of these plants are very little understood. They're not studied much. So I'm hoping that when we return, they'll be in flower so that I can ID them. Even for an ethnobotanist, they say that it requires microscopy. You got to put it under a microscope so you can look at the trichomes on the underside of the leaves if it's in a pure vegetative state. So that is the deal with this vine.
Whatever? Yeah? Did we just find this by the side of the road?
Yeah, we're cutting it down.
Where's that? Man, the pattern, come here. Look at this.
So immediately when you see this vine, you might notice that the dark coloring in the xylem versus the phloem has reversed. So the classic ayahuasca pattern is dark and the filler wood, I guess you could say, is light, whereas in the alicia species it's reversed. You might think that would be enough to resolve the confusion, but it's not, because as these plants grow older, that coloration can reverse. So you'll also notice there are different growth characteristics here. This one is a Banisteriopsis, what we would refer to as Trueno. Night monkeys are one of the most rare and least studied and the only nocturnal species in the Amazon. And in all my years in the jungle, I heard them, but I never saw them. And these guys showed up every single night. I'm going to check in with the chat real quick, though, before we get into this video, which is just absolutely awesome. I was so happy to have this close encounter with these creatures. Yeah, I usually do gather the plants for ceremony myself if I can. Otherwise, we have one person that we work with that sends us red, yellow, or black. And as I said before, it's a black vine that we actually know the lineage of. So there's no guesswork involved. She cultivates it herself. But yeah, I do try. And actually, later on in the video, for the second time, I was led by Pachamama, the ayahuasca spirit narrator, to a vine. The first vine that I ever harvested myself. Very similar story, but let's wait till we get there. But yeah, really interesting. So check these things out.
Oh shit, there's another one. Yeah. Wow.
Look how adorable they are. They were there almost every single night. Late. You had to stay up late to see them. But you just hear the splashing sound in the trees, and you know they have arrived. The first night, Nick and I were fishing, and there, like, little fruit started falling out of the trees into the boat, and we're like, what the hell is that? And then we hear the commotion, and we didn't have, our spotlight was kind of dying, so we didn't get a good look at them. And then the next night we were out, and that happened. And I actually have about an hour of video of these creatures. A lot of the other monkeys I didn't get good video of because it's really hard. I actually caught myself doing some pretty amateurish, you know, you don't run in the jungle. You just don't do that. There's less Dos Equis in the lowlands, but there are still plenty of vipers. And I knew there were large monkeys up ahead. I didn't know what species. I did get recordings. You guys will hear their calls. But I knew I had little time to get there, and I actually took off running, and I made it about 30 yards, and I was like, whoa, what are you doing right now? A couple of rookie mistakes. I got bit by a bullet ant as well, which is the most painful insect bite or sting in the world. And narcos that have been shot and bitten say they would rather get shot a second time than bitten again. And I can attest to that. It's absolutely horrible. And it's not like any other insect sting or bite that I've ever had. It's not like an itchy, annoying kind of pain. It is like, blunt force trauma is what it feels like. And it lasts for a couple days. So that sucks. So this is a river crossing here. On the other side of the river, there's a lot more wildlife. We saw huge parrot species I've never seen before. You can kind of see those cliffs off in the distance. Those are salt licks if you get up early enough in the morning, which I did not. The macaws gather there in huge numbers every single day, and yeah, you'll see. There's some video of the other side. This situation, we were actually looking for cubensis, and somebody told us where the cow fields were, and that bull there didn't want to let us pass. It just stood there it was a standoff, Nick and I, probably like 15 minutes, and it did stomp its feet a couple times, and I wish I'd gotten this on video, but one of the cows came over and actually like slammed her head into him, like, chill out, man. And then he kind of acted like he was minding his own business. It was crazy. Like his wife checked him, like, leave him alone. This parrot, there's indigenous community on this side of the river. It was really friendly. So this, I just got a little shot of it. I had run to try to get some video of these two large monkeys, maybe howlers or woolies, that I saw swinging through the canopy, and they got away before I could shoot. But these trees with these above ground root systems are a common feature in the Amazon. I don't know what particular tree this is. There are other variations. One that has like giant thorns all over the root system, and they are called walking palms. And legend has it that they actually very slowly walk around the jungle. And some people claim that this is just entirely a superstitious myth. But I know one biologist that actually tracked one over, I think, 35 years, and it moved like 15 meters. So it seems they do actually walk really, really slowly. Not this tree, however. These things were everywhere. I assume it's some kind of wasp. It was really trippy. I mean, they were every like 7 feet in this part of the jungle. That sound is a large monkey species. I don't know which one. This is the one that I was running after.
Here's monkeys, buddy. That's what them sounds are. Their sounds? Monkeys.
I didn't get very good shots of these guys, mostly because I was getting eaten alive by mosquitoes. And I was just having trouble centering on them, but I think you can see, I believe they're marmosets. They're a bit big to be marmosets, but I can't imagine what else they could be. See, there's one. There's another one. You can actually hear the mosquitoes if you listen closely. So the return trip, those are the clay licks, excuse me, salt licks. The last image was starfruit, which are really common in the area. I'm not going to say that they're amazing, but on a hot day, they're really juicy at least, and they're, something. This, I believe, is some type of passion fruit. I don't know what they call it down there, but they're pava palms is what they called it in Ecuador. The leaves are used to make the thatch for the huts, and as you'll see in a second, it's a source of food that is really, really abundant. If you're stuck in the rainforest with nothing to eat, you will not go hungry if you know what these are. So the young shoots that I just pulled before they open, You can eat them maybe 10 inches up and they start to get fibrous. This is one of the flowers, and I didn't get any shots of this because they're not at that stage, but they actually explode into this like pile of pistils that is sort of like angel hair pasta, and there's a tremendous amount of it. So yeah, you can collect these pistils, and it's almost exactly like al dente angel hair. I don't know what those are. I just thought they were cool. That is Toei, and Toei is often mislabeled as Datura. It does contain the same alkaloids as Datura, the tropane alkaloids, scopolamine, atropine, hyoscamine. It is not to be messed with, not to be taken lightly. People often ask me about it as a visionary tool, and I seriously discourage experimentation. It is excellent for inflammation and insomnia if used in very small amounts, if you know what you're doing. Otherwise, leave it alone. It's really dangerous. And the effects of it are not like classical psychedelics. It causes true hallucinations, so you cannot tell the difference between reality and these things. The spirits that are associated with it also are both good and malevolent, but they can be malevolent to the point of like danger. So these compounds dehydrate you severely, and these impish spirits will try to convince you to, say, drink a cup of sand, and then you'll choke to death on it. So there are shamans that work with it in this area. The Matsahinka are tabaqueros that occasionally use Toei as well. The Shuar use it for certain initiatory stages. But like I said, it's just not something to be messed with. Beautiful plant. So this, I actually forgot to grab a piece. It's right over there. But after ceremony, the day after, I was walking out the driveway, and my intention was to go back across the river to try to get more video of the jungle, and there's all the monkeys over there. And I hear Pachamama in my head say, no, go to the right, go about 350 yards, and look to your right. The road crew is about to destroy an abuela vine, a big yellow vine, and it would be better if you had some of it at least. And I was like, I want to go spend a day alone in the jungle, and I kind of didn't want to play along, but she's like, it's not like you don't need the medicine, and it's just going to get destroyed anyway. So I was like, okay, I'll go check. And sure enough, it was exactly where I was told, and the road crew was about 200 yards at the most down the street, another hour or two, and they would be here. So it's actually the second time it's happened. The first time I was in Ecuador, and I needed vine. And in that part of Ecuador, it's extremely common. In fact, anywhere that's not like Iquitos or Pucallpa or places that are commercially, commercial centers, caapi is a pretty common plant. I mean, it's literally everywhere. And so I thought, I'll just go out in the jungle, and it's everywhere. So it'll take, 45 minutes, and I can grab a few pieces and whatever. And so that same voice says, you're going to waste your time. You're going to walk and walk and walk. You're not going to see a single vine, and it's going to get dark. And if you just go to the right, go down to the creek, turn at the little creek, and follow it back, and there's a huge abuela. And I thought, silly voice in my head, shrugged it off, ignored it, walked forever in the jungle, found nothing, went back out to the street. It's getting dark. And I decided, you know what, I should humor this voice in my head and go and check. So I go down to the creek, follow it back, and there's a huge red vine that to this day, it was my favorite medicine that I've ever made. Absolutely incredible. And it was an abuela, so it had dropped, dozens of seeds, and there were little adolescent and baby vines all around, similar to this one. So unfortunately, I didn't realize how massive this vine actually was when I took this video, because the way that caapi works, it'll find like a host tree, right? And it'll send runners around to the front where all the foliage is, wherever the sun is shining. And then the main body will typically be back in the shadows where all the water is, right? And it wasn't until I returned a couple of nights later that I noticed that the main body of this vine was like 10 inches thick. I mean, it was huge. And most interestingly, that's a very large tree that is its host, you know. And the body, the main trunk of this vine was actually growing out of the middle of this giant tree, which means that it was, 50, 60, 75 years old, because it's a really old tree and it's dead center just like popping out of it. I wish I'd gotten video of that because it was really extraordinary. So I had to battle with myself. I kind of wanted to take some of that main trunk because I knew the road crew was going to just destroy it anyways, but I have a rule against that and I just couldn't talk myself into doing it. I probably took less than 5% or something. Also, on my way back to do that, there were some British guys on a motorcycle sitting right across the street from it, and I heard the one guy telling me, "I'm telling you, man, it's right under that street light right there." And it was really obvious that they were profiteers, just their energy and stuff. They weren't just looking for a little bit of medicine, they were definitely looking to just completely harvest the entire thing and sell it. And I thought, well, if that's also going to happen anyways, but I just couldn't bring myself to cut the main body. Anyways, here's a little bit of video of it.
There's a pretty big one all the way over here. Oh my gosh. And this is the black.
Yeah, so it actually went behind the tree and then way, way, way over. There were adolescent vines that had grown from seeds from it that's just shooting out everywhere and going for hundreds of meters. It's like this massive complex of copy. And there are some cuttings. And that brings us to the end of our slideshow. So, like Deliriant, have I journeyed with it? He's asking about Toei. And I will, let me get a better, I shouldn't have closed that actually, because I don't have my, background anymore for some reason. So let's just put this butterfly screen back there. And, not on purpose. I did take Datura stramonium pods once when I was like 17 out of curiosity, and it was a really bad idea. I think it permanently damaged my eyesight. Things have been a bit blurry since then. And it was totally unpleasant, and it was only like half a seed pod or something. But then with Toei, I do use it on occasion for insomnia and inflammation. And when we came to Peru, I knew that the plant was a little bit stronger, but I underestimated how much stronger. And I made a brew for insomnia one night, and my partner was not there, but she sure was within a few hours. It was enough to actually to induce like a journey, as you put it, and it was really bizarre. It was just like normal life, except that there were things there that weren't actually there, like my partner. When I lay down in the bed, I just kind of fell into bed with all my clothes on, and I heard coins fall out of my pockets. And when I woke up or whatever happened, I went to the bathroom to pee, and I came back and my partner was there, and she was like trying to pick all the change up and put it in my hand, but it was falling through my hand. And I was like, that's not right. She's not here, first of all. And why is the money falling through my fingers? And a little bit later, I guess I got up to pee again. I came back and there was this like professor with a pointer, and there was like an Egyptian symbol on my wall, and he was explaining it with this pointer stick. And I kind of listened to that for a minute and then just went to sleep. Interestingly, one of the things this plant is used for is prophetical dreaming. And I woke up the next day, went about my business. Things were a bit blurry. I was literally seeing double. I went outside, I remember, and I saw a condor flying around, and there were two of them. And I knew it was the same thing twice. And so, a little bit disoriented still, seeing double. And I go in to generate a thumbnail. And the image that I get from the AI image generator is exactly this Egyptian symbol that the professor had been explaining on the wall the night before. So yeah, that's the only experience I've had at that level with that particular plant. And again, I just don't recommend it. It's generally used as a painkiller of sorts in the Amazon, because there are no opiates here. There are no opium poppies that are wild. And so if you, like, I know one instance of a teenager fell out of a tree and broke his back, and he was in tremendous pain. And so the village shaman put him in a sort of coma. And apparently it's sort of like a state of cryogenesis where you don't need food or water as you normally would. And after like 3 or 4 days, 5 days, he gave the kid an antidote to bring him back and asked, "Are you still in pain?" He said he was, so he put him back under. So that's the kind of thing it's used for in the Amazon, outside of like certain rare shamanic modalities. Another thing that it's used for, or at least the alkaloids, is actually creating zombies in Haiti. If you mix it with pufferfish venom and some other plants, there's a topically active powder that can be made that if you get it on you, you will appear to be dead. Basically, your vital signs are so faint that they're overlooked. And once you're buried, depending on how many days you're left buried before you're given the antidote, you'll have various degrees of brain damage. And so when the antidote is given, you're a zombie slave, and you'll be forced into S work or plantation work or something. And yeah, so that's crazy. And then also what do they call it? Like devil's powder or something. You blow it in the face of people, and it makes you highly suggestible. So it's like you're not incapacitated, but you just can't make your own decisions. And so people will blow it in your face in Colombia and places like that, and they'll say, "Take me to your apartment and give me your life savings," and you'll be like, "Okay," and you'll just do whatever they tell you. So this is another reason why it's so dangerous for shamanic practice. In fact, in most like ayahuasca and San Pedro, for example, the shaman takes the medicine. That's the most important thing anyways. Traditionally, that's pretty much always how it was done. And they help the person by being able to read their energetic field and having a feedback loop with their subconscious and whatnot. And in the case of Toei, the shaman does not take it. He gives it to the patient, and he oversees things because you're so susceptible, and then you have these impish spirits telling you to do all this stuff, and there needs to be someone there to make sure that you don't. And so, yeah, the shaman actually refrains in such a case. And check in with the chat again. By the way, we are still booking for events throughout the late spring, early summer, late summer, and fall. We're going to do some it's not quite Kiabamba, but a little bit lower. Part of the reason for that is that in the lowlands, there's a lot more bugs, there's a lot more heat, there's a lot of water, moisture in the air. It makes things a little bit more difficult. And a little bit higher up, it's much more moderate, but still very much jungle. So we're going to do some there. We're definitely going back to Puerto Maldonado, but those events are going to be very small groups and probably more of a premium price point, because it's just not cost effective to do something with groups that small, and we have to rent the entire property, all these cabins, and it's amazing. But that's going to be more for, if we have like 2 couples that are interested. There's 4 cabins. We need 2 of them. Yeah, so there's only 2 spaces available for maximum 4 people in each one. So, you know what I mean? That's just, it's just not really workable, at least not at our current rates. So in Kiabamba, it'll be a little bit more hospitable, and also we'll be able to keep our prices as they are. So let me check back in with the chat, see if you guys have any questions, comments. Please consider supporting the channel, becoming a patron. We're demonetized, and so all of our support comes from the community. So like a delirium, that's wild. I've heard some. Yeah, Datura is not something to use as a casual psychedelic. Okay, so I don't see any more questions or comments. I'll give you guys a few more minutes to pop anything in there that you'd like. If I can weigh in on it for you. Otherwise, I hope to see some of you guys at JungleGnosis or Mountain Gnosis events. We're going to still host in the Sacred Valley. Those are also going to be very small. We only have 2 extra rooms. Very different environment, but also really, really interesting. We have Incan ruins basically in our backyard, and places like the Temple of the Moon are really important Incan holy sites, but there's usually during the off season no one there. So we'll go and drink San Pedro in these ancient Incan ruins, and there's no one there to disturb us most of the time, which is insane. It really blew my mind. On the off season as well, if you go to Temple of the Sun, which is an incredible Incan holy site, during the off season there's just a handful of people, and you can very easily find like a private little nook somewhere in the ruins and have a little rape ceremony or whatever it is that feels appropriate. Pretty extraordinary. Also, the museum here has some of the elongated skulls, which are a tremendously weird mystery. That museum also is where I found out that there is, or was, a pre-Incan mystery school that had the as above, so below ontological principle. They use psychoactive plants as initiation. Initiates were screened for moral character and intelligence. It's basically exactly the same thing as the Elizanian mysteries, but in a pre-Incan civilization. So, there's a lot of mystery and magic here in the Sacred Valley, and bouncing back and forth between the Amazon in this place is absolutely amazing, except that going to the jungle really drove home the fact that I do not acclimate to the altitude. I felt so much better after a few days in the jungle, and coming back here really hit me like, this is problematic. So we really don't want to give up the spot because it is just absolutely tranquil. You don't have to lock your doors at night. Our neighbors mostly don't even speak Spanish, and they're living very traditionally. Everyone's very friendly. We're close enough to civilization that we have all of the convenience of it, but we feel totally just away from the world with all of the chaos that's going on. So, we really want to keep this place and travel to the jungle for these events, but that may not be wise for me. I'm actually going to try to get a supplemental oxygen tank and see if that maybe offsets some of the fatigue and other issues. Long story short, we're going to be spending definitely a lot more time in the jungle, if not moving to just a slightly lower elevation than Kiabamba in that general direction. If it turns out that I just can't continue living at 13,000 feet anymore, which seems highly likely. Yeah, visits from spring to fall, but not in the, there are a couple of months that we won't be active in the middle of the summer. That may actually change, however, because the internet and the locals in Puerto Maldonado have a different opinion about when the dry season is, which is weird, but every internet source that I can find is the same, but they say something different and they live there. So, the point being that one of the side quests of all of this is I want to see a giant anaconda in the wild. Big bucket list thing for me, and the dry season is when to do that because the water's low and they can't hide as well. So if I can confirm absolutely that the dry season is in the middle of the summer, then we're going to do at least one event where we're going to go anaconda hunting as our like day off activities. So we'll see about that. I don't understand why all of the like official websites and the AIs that you ask, they all say that November, October is the dry season, but the locals say it's the middle of summer. I have to figure this out, and I'll get back to you. All right, so I'm not seeing any inquiries about anything. If you guys are interested in joining us for one of these events, just shoot me an email and we can schedule a video call. There's a screening process for mental and physical health, and also to make sure you're a good match. Almost all of our people are returning guests, so we really all kind of know each other, and it's not like a clique, it's not what I'm saying at all. But it's, for one thing, it's not really, in my opinion, entirely appropriate for complete strangers to consume powerful entheogens together. That's definitely not how it happened in a traditional context. So we're kind of selective. If it doesn't even necessarily mean that I detect anything bad about a person. If for some reason you were rejected, don't get your feelings hurt. But one of the reasons I don't really advertise outside of the community is that we like to make sure that there's good balance and consonance in our groups, which have been just absolutely amazing so far. I'm always really impressed with the individuals in this community when I meet them, and that's really heartwarming for me to see the quality and the character of the people that are attracted to this community, to the extent that they would fly across the world to come and hang out with us. It's really cool to meet you guys and always find that you are awesome people. So thank you so much for spending this time with me. Tomorrow night we're going to get into, I made the title "The Most Mind-Blowing Shit Ever," and that may sound a bit presumptuous, but I think I actually can back it up with this one. It is truly wild. And don't come expecting that it's going to be like a totally formalized, organized theory. Part of what I'm doing here is trying to go through the material and do that, and do it with feedback from a live audience, because this project is really just sprawling, and it's like every time I open up another little branch of it, it turns into 100 more branches. So some collective input would be awesome, and that's what we're doing tomorrow night. So thank you guys so much. Hope to see you at one of our events.